In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I got my aim from looking like this.
I'm fucking down, what?
Oh, why? You just give up again?
Why does it do that?
Because you're pressing RT.
To now being super accurate and being able to control the recoil just like this.
Seconds before zones relocate.
So when I first picked up Warzone on the day that it released, my aim really wasn't that great. I was losing a lot of easy gunfights, and if you guys are watching the video, you're probably in a very similar. So when I first picked up Warzone on the day that it released, my aim really wasn't that great. I was losing a lot of easy gunfights, and if you guys are watching the video, you're probably in a very similar situation. But today, I'm going to show you all the things that I've done to practice, make my aim better, and just be able to get some really insane clips that you actually see me here. And you will just overall see a much bigger increase in your game if you do just follow these tips and put into practice what I'm about to show you. So the first thing you are actually going to want to do, guys, if you've got multiplayer, is you're going to want to head to a private match. Click on create a private match. And once you're here, I'm also going to show you how to set up bots, because we are going to want those at some point as well. So if you do want to add bots, whether it's friendly or enemy, you're just simply going to come over to the 2+ icons over here, click on those, and then you can just add any bots that you want and set them on a difficulty. For the difficulty we're going to use for this, it's simply going to be on recruit, because all we're worrying about is improving our aim, not actually getting better against enemy bots. But to start with, we're just going to be jumping into a game without any bots in the game. So the first thing you need to know about when it comes down to aiming is there's two different types of aiming that is in the game. And the first one is obviously going to be your active aim, and this is why you're actually in gunfights, tracking opponents, shooting at players, and overall just what you'd expect an aiming video to be about. But then there's a second part of your aiming, and this is what I like to call the preparation aim. And what this is simply all about is centering your aim perfectly. So obviously, as we all know, we've got crosshairs in the middle of our screen. And what we want to do with these crosshairs is have them positioned in areas where we can expect our opponents to be. And this is what players call centering. So what this is essentially going to do, so if you're coming around a corner, and let's say, for example, you know, there's a door, there's a window, something along those lines where there's going to be an enemy player, or there's likely to be an enemy player, you want to have your crosshairs centered on that area. So as soon as you go around that corner, if there is someone there, your iron sights are going to go up straight away, and you can get those shots off to take them out nice and quickly. But I'm going to show you how to get good at all of this throughout this entire video, so make sure you stay tuned the whole way throughout. But let's jump into our first little drill right now. So guys, one of the first things you actually want to do is learn how to strafe and keep your crosshairs on your opponent. So what we're going to do is just load into any game of multiplayer if you guys have multiplayer. If not, you can just jump into a secluded area of Warzone where there's not a lot of players to be able to do this yourself there. But what we're going to do for the first one, guys, is just learn to keep our crosshairs on a certain area and move left and right. So what you want to do is sort of stand 10 to 15 meters away from an object, a door, a window, a barrel, and you just want to get used to keeping your crosshairs in the middle of this object as you possibly can. You want to start off moving really slow, just move left to right and keep your crosshairs lined up on that area, and just move left and right very, very slowly. And as you get better, you can slowly start speeding up, get full movement in there, pushing the keys or your analog stick to the left and right, and just do exactly as I'm doing on screen right now. Just keep your crosshairs in that area as much as you can, and just try to keep it as steady as you can. What we're looking for is as little crosshair movement as we possibly can. So as you can see, mine right now is bang on the middle of the door, and we want to try and move all the way to the right while keeping the crosshair bang on the middle of the door. So like I said, you can start off really slow, just get used to it, and as you're getting better at it and you seem to be able to stick to it a lot better, just move faster, just slowly increase the pace. And what this is going to allow you to do, guys, is get your aim prepared for a gunfight. So essentially what this is going to help with is actually getting your aim centered. So a lot of people are going to spawn within that area on this map. So if my crosshair is then centered for this sort of doorway as I'm coming around the corner, if someone is coming around there, then I know I can get my sights up nice and quickly, ready for them to come around that corner. And if not, then it doesn't matter, but I was prepared for that gunfight. Whereas if I run around the corner like this and there's someone to my left, I then need to try and snap all the way over, making it much, much harder for that gunfight. Whereas if I'm coming around that corner, then I know I can keep my crosshairs in the middle of where I'm expecting someone to be. I know they're going to stay pretty central, and I'm ready for that gunfight. Same as it goes anywhere. If someone's in this plane, for example, we can come around, keep our crosshairs locked, and if there was someone there, we'd be ready to take them out of the game. So that's the first thing you definitely want to get down, because like I said, this is going to prepare you for so many gunfights when you're going around corners, searching different areas. It's going to get you so much better prepared than just running past and having to snap onto everyone every single time you do head around a corner. Honestly, this is already going to make such a big difference to your game if you can apply it. So the next thing we want to do is something similar, but we want to be able to keep our crosshairs very even between two different subjects. So let's say I want to go from the corner of the storage container to this barrel here. What I'm going to be practicing now is slowly going left and right and trying to keep my crosshairs as level as I possibly can. Same as the first one, you want to start nice and slow. Just make sure you're keeping it nice and level, and then you can go back to the barrel again. You can just find two different objects, whether that's windows, barrels, it doesn't matter. You just want to be practicing getting your analog stick or your mouse over to the left and right as smooth as you possibly can. Because where this is going to help is if you're taking out an enemy here and then there's an enemy to the right or the left, you then know you're going to be able to keep that crosshair nice and level to snap onto the next opponent and be able to take them out of the game. But like I said, once you do this once and you get good at doing slow, you just want to get faster, get used to snapping onto your opponents, doing it nice and quickly, but being able to be accurate and stop in the right places. You don't want to be on the barrel here, stopping at the storage container there, because in a game you would have gone past your opponent. So you want to try and get on the corner of this storage container, get over to the barrel, stop on the barrel, back to the container, back to the barrel, back to the container, back to the barrel, back to the container, and just practice this. One thing that might help doing this, guys, is coming down to your controller or your keyboard settings and changing your horizontal and vertical sensitivity. A lot of pro players play on 6, 7. I play on 10 because I know my aim's good, but if I'm struggling with my aim, I would slowly drop it down. Maybe start on 5 or 6, and if you find that that's too slow, you can slowly start increasing it. And one other thing you might want to also do is increase your ADS sensitivity multiplier down to around 0.7 to 0.8. And this is definitely going to help with controlling, just being able to strafe left and right, being accurate onto your opponents. So that's the next thing you want to be putting into play. And then once you put that into play, you can slowly start mixing the pair of them together, the strafing left and right while snapping onto the two opponents, keeping that crosshair nice and level. That's now going to make you a lot more prepared for the game, because that's going to allow you to snap between the opponents while also staying on the move, making you a much harder target to hit. So for the next drill, guys, what you're going to want to do is add some friendly bots into the game, and you want to follow some of these bots around, just getting used to keeping your crosshairs on them at around about chest to head height. And you just want to try this out at all kinds of different ranges. Just try and keep your crosshairs aimed at their chest or head the entire time, so you can sort of start to get an idea of where the bots are going to be and where the opponents are going to be, and just getting used to being ready to shoot at those higher levels of your opponents. So as you can see, we've got our crosshairs on the bot the whole time. Like I said, you can let them get further away because it's going to become a little bit more difficult. You can then follow the bots around, switch targets if you want to switch targets. It really doesn't matter. Just get used to keeping your crosshairs around the height of the head and the chest on your opponents as you possibly can, because like I said, again, this is going to give you a good idea of where your crosshairs should be the entire time whilst you're in a game, so you can be prepared to get those headshots, chest shots, because those are the areas that are going to do the most damage to your opponent. You just want to follow some bots around, get used to keeping your crosshairs in that location and staying on them, because what this is now going to do is basically going to take the last two things that we did and put them into a real game sort of scenario where you actually have to move your crosshairs, keep them accurate whilst also moving around the map as well. Because like I said, having movement in this game whilst being in gunfights is really going to help you stay alive, make you a much harder target to hit. But as you can see, I'm just following these bots around, keeping my crosshairs around about that chest and head level, trying to keep them on them as much as I possibly can without losing sight. When we do lose sight, we're just going to chase after them again, continuing to keep those crosshairs lined up with the chest and head area on our opponents. So again, get used to keeping our crosshairs in the right locations, being prepared for any sort of gunfight. And like I said, the reason we want to try this at all different ranges is because, of course, the distance between you and your opponents is never going to be the same. So you want to get used to having your crosshairs in the right sort of locations at all different distances. And this is actually going to make such a big difference to your game, because if that wasn't an enemy player right now, I'm snapping straight onto the head of them, and I'm going to be able to get those nice critical shots to actually get their health down pretty quickly. And because you can see their green dots, you can sort of predict where you think the head and chest level is going to be. So when they are behind an area like this, you can sort of guess, right, so if he had come out, I'd have been hitting upper chest shots, maybe even headshots in that sort of situation. And this is, like I said, really, really going to help with getting your game awareness up, being prepared for those gunfights, so you can do the most damage to your opponents as possible. Again, I can see the dot through the wall, so I know his head and chest are probably going to be around this sort of area, so he can come around and bang. If that was the case, I'd have been straight on the head for those headshots, taking that opponent out the game very, very quickly. So now we can actually get on some of the fun stuff, and we're learning how to control recoil, actually shooting at enemies and taking enemies out of the game. Because the first little bit, I know there's not much gunfight going on, but these are some very, very important steps to improving your aim and overall just becoming a better player within Warzone or multiplayer. So guys, the next step we are going to take is learning how to control the recoil of a gun. So what you're going to want to do is try and find a nice sign or something. It doesn't matter if it's head height, up above, it really does not matter. But let's just use this sign here, for example. So you want to start nice and close. Just see if you can actually keep your recoil within the area of that sign. And if you can, great. So you're going to want to try and unload a whole magazine into this sign at once. So do 60 rounds, however big your magazine is, just unload a whole magazine. You're then going to want to move further back and see if from a further away distance you can continue to do the same thing. Just learn the recoil pattern of the gun. We can then just take it back and we can continue to take the sign out. That's another whole magazine gone. We can then continue to move back again, get used to doing it this far away. And what this is really going to help you to do is just be prepared for those longer range gunfights and just learn the recoil of the weapons that you enjoy using. So as you can see with this gun right now, I'm pretty accurate. I do have still a little bit of work to do. You know, there's still a little bit of recoil that is there that I'm not able to control. But what I can do is pretty much keep it on that sign from no matter whereabouts I am. Meaning if that was an opponent, there's a very good chance I'm going to hit majority of my shots on them. So then what you can do, guys, if you're really struggling to control the recoil, is just come to a plain wall and just hold down the trigger. Don't actually try and control the recoil. Just push the trigger down, and then you can start to see what the recoil pattern is. So as you can see with this gun right here, it comes a little bit to the left, goes a little bit to the right, but majority of the time it is up. So what we're going to need to do as we're shooting is come to the right a little bit, and then start coming to the left a little bit. And that's how you're going to start controlling the recoil. If we look there, much more compact to what it was just there. It's all the way up, it comes out, but we can see the recoil pattern of the gun. So what you want to do is try and take note of the recoil pattern, and if you're struggling still a little bit further away, what you can try and do is just shoot a couple of bullets and try and keep them accurate. Do a couple bullets again and get used to controlling the first little burst of bullets that do come out. Once you can then control that, start firing for a little bit longer and get used to controlling the second amount. So now I'm going to wait for it to kick out to the right hand side, and I feel like I've got it pretty much down to a T. So now that we've got our recoil down to a T, guys, what we're going to want to do is try and find a line in the game. So as you can see, this line right here across the building does come down, right, and then up, for example. So a line like that is a pretty good place to start. And what you're going to want to do is just get used to following that line whilst ADS. Just get used to following it and make sure you can follow it the whole way. So you want to go up, down, to the left. As you can see, I'm not really coming off of that line and all the way back across. Get used to doing this over and over and over again, and just do it until you can be very, very accurate. So if you're coming across and you're sort of like this, you're sort of up and over all over the place, remember to start slow. Come across really slow, and then you can start picking up the pace. As you can see, now I can go really fast because my aim is pretty good. But if you're struggling and you're starting to look a little bit like this, you're coming off of it a lot, slow yourself right down. Just be really, really slow. Get used to following that line. Once you can follow that line on a slow level, start speeding it up a little bit, come across. Okay, cool. Now I can follow that pretty accurate. And then once you're pretty confident in following that line, start adding some gunshots into it and see how accurate you can be across that entire line. Like I said, remember to start slow, because as you can see, doing it fast, even for me, I do struggle to stay across the line. So if we go slow to start with, we're going to get used to controlling that recoil, and we're going to expect to follow that line over and over and over again. And again, we can continue to do it. We can just follow the line all the way across. Once we come to that point, we can then go again all the way along, and then we'd go going up this bit as well. So what this is going to do is essentially just get you used to actually shooting at a target that is moving whilst trying to keep your crosshairs on them at the entire time. Because, of course, it's all well and good being able to control recoil, standing in a straight line and just shooting at a non-moving target. But your opponents are going to move in-game in pretty linear situations. So they are going to be running across like this. They might go up and they might go down. So if you can learn to control the ups and downs and then the sidewards, you're going to be in a pretty good position. Because even if you've got an enemy in the air in Warzone, you're going to be tracking them just like so. And what it is a case of just getting used to be able to control your recoil whilst you're moving your gun across a pretty much straight line. Because, as I mentioned, your opponents are going to be moving across maps like this. You're going to be trying to track them the entire time. And like I said, they might be jumping up. So you want to be able to follow them in those sort of different patterns in that sort of situation. And again, don't forget, like I said, if you're still struggling to stay accurate, bring these sensitivities down. Bring both your horizontal and vertical sensitivity down. Bring your ADS sensitivity multiplier down until you're in a pretty sweet spot. Start off low, and if it still feels too slow, then you can slowly increase it to the point that you're comfortable with. There's no point starting really high and not being able to control it at all. You're just sort of like this. There's no way you can control what's going on. Start low and slowly bring it up if you feel like it is too slow, and that's going to give you the best idea of where your sensitivity should be for you as a player. So what you're now going to want to try and practice, guys, is snapping from one object to another. So let's say, for example, I want to snap from this 4 over to like this line here, for example, because that's where another enemy might be. We're just going to go from there. We're going to shoot a couple of shots, and then we're going to try and snap and get into that sort of area. You just want to get used to snapping between two different subjects. You can either do this while fully ADS, because of course, as you're going over those opponents, you are going to get a bit of aim assist, which is going to slow your aim down, or you can be ADS at that one, unsnap from your ADS, and then ADS into the other one. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it, but you want to get used to snapping between two different objects like so. And you want to start making sure you're actually shooting between these two areas as well. Because obviously in game, if there's two enemies, you are going to be shooting. It's easy enough to do it whilst it's static and the gun's not bouncing around. But you want to be able to do it whilst the gun's bouncing around and you are actually shooting at both targets. Because as I mentioned, what this is going to do is get you prepared for in-game for when you've got two enemies right next to each other. It's going to get you much more used to that situation of snapping between the pair of them. So if you've got one to the right-hand side, let's say an opponent comes through that window, you take them down and then another one comes through that sort of area. You're just prepared to snap between the two different areas. And this is really going to help you just take out multiple enemies and get those double kills, triple kills. And especially in Warzone, if you're solo duos, solo trios, solo quads, it's going to make it much easier and get you prepared for those extra gunfights that are going to be coming your way. And the reason I say you can un-ADS is because if we look at how long it takes me to ADS from here to the plane, it's not the longest time, but if I do un-ADS, I can get there a lot faster. Like, if you look at how fast I can move like that, when compared to being ADS, it's definitely a lot faster, which is why a lot of times in games, you'll see high-level players, pro players, be aiming at this opponent, take their shots, and then un-ADS and shoot at the next one, because it does move your crosshairs a little bit faster depending on your sensitivity. So now that we've done that, guys, I feel like we're ready to get against some actual bots and start putting some of this to practice and also getting used to our close-range gunfights. Okay, guys, so now what we're going to do is add some bots into the game. As you can see, a whole bunch of enemy bots are now in the game. So what I'm going to do is come to a little small room, something along the lines of this, where there's not too many angles that I can be shot from, and just get prepared for the close-range gunfights. As you can see, these opponents are coming through. And as you can see, someone like me, I've put quite a lot of bots on because I'm pretty confident in my aim at close range. But if you're just starting out, maybe just add a couple of bots in. Get used to just running around, doing a bit of movement. And as you can see, I am dying a couple of times, but this is good. This is exactly what you want. You don't want it to be too easy. But like I said, if you are struggling to start off with, then just add a couple of bots in, you know. Get used to fighting against a couple of bots close range. Get used to your hip fires. Get used to tracking your opponents whilst you got that close range on. And get used to snapping towards those opponents. As you can see, I'm very snappy with my aim. It's pretty easy for me to snap between two different opponents. And this is all because I've put the steps into play for the last ones. I'm prepared for where my opponents are going to be. My crosshairs are in the areas where I am expecting my opponents to come from. And now what I'm going to do is get used to hip firing at close range, you know, snapping onto those opponents at close range, and just being prepared for all types of different gunfights. So as you just saw there, I come through that door expecting my opponents to be the other side of it. You can see where my crosshairs are lined up. And this is because there's a very good chance I'm going to have enemies coming through this area. So as you can see, it is a very good training method because I can come round, I'm getting my crosshairs, I'm used to getting my crosshairs. So like, right, I know there's a couple of enemies there. As I'm coming round, I'm going to keep my aim centered in those sort of areas where I can see the opponents. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to be very accurate and very snappy every time I do get round a corner. And once you're starting to get a good feel for it, you know, you're starting to hit a lot of your hip fire shots. You're starting to feel a lot more snappy on your opponents. You know, your crosshair placement's looking pretty good. You're starting to get a lot of kills back to back without actually dying. Then what you want to start doing is trying to add some movement in. Because, of course, in Call of Duty, movement is very important. So what I mean by movement is some slides. As you can see, you can just slide around the bullets, slide cancelling through doors, and just actually overall just becoming a much faster player, making it harder for your opponents to hit you. Again, though, whilst you're doing this, make sure your crosshairs are still in those areas that we spoke about where you are expecting your opponents to be. Remember to keep them nice and centered. As you can see, I've got enemies over there. It's trying to be snappy with it. It's trying to stay composed, trying to make use of every little tip that we have shown you so far. You still want to make use of it. I know there's enemies that are going to be coming around here. So through that plane, see how my aim is always centered throughout the middle of that plane. I mean, it's sort of head and chest area because that's where I'm expecting my opponents to be. I'm expecting the shots to be down this sort of area. And it just means I can be very snappy. I can be very fast onto my opponents. I can take them out the game pretty quickly. And as you can see, I'm now starting to throw in some jumps, some slides. It's going to really help me get around my opponents. Of course, these are still low-level bots. They're only recruit difficulty, but we're not on here to become the world's best player against bots. We are on here to practice our aim and just overall get better at how we're going to aim in game. And that is a perfect example of the next drill that I'm going to show you. And what this is basically going to be about is your awareness and your reactions to shots being taken. So I know there's a couple of enemies behind me. I'm going to let them start shooting at me. And what I'm going to do is try and turn around and get snappy on it. So because in Warzone, there's a lot of times you're going to be shot in the back. So what you're going to want to do is sort of put yourself in a situation against these bots where you are getting shot in the back. And then once you know you're getting shot in the back, what you're going to do is try and throw some movement in there. Try and, you know, manipulate your opponents. Try and get away from the shots that they are shooting at you. But also mix that movement with actually trying to turn around and actually hitting the shots that you need to be hitting. So like I said, if you know there's a lot of opponents behind you, let them get the first shots at you. Like, I'm going to stand like this, wait till I'm shot in the back, for example. which I should do any second now. Let one of them shoot me in the back. Hopefully one of them does. I don't know where all the bots have gone. So let's see if this one wants to shoot me in the back. There we go. So now I'm going to put some slides in. I'm going to move around the corner. Unfortunately, I did get shot in the back once again, but you can see the idea that I'm getting at. It's a case of just being able to get shot in the back and reacting to the shots that are going on around you. It's moving about, adding some jumps in there, some slides, getting snappy onto your opponents, and just overall improving your aim. Get used to centering onto your opponents. Get prepared for enemies to come from certain locations, and overall just be prepared for every gunfight that could be possibly coming your way. But as you can see, one of the key things that I have said from the start of this video is one thing that I'm doing, and it is keeping my aim centered around those corners. If you pay attention to where my crosshairs are at all times, it's where I'm expecting the enemies to be. Because as I've said the entire video, what this is going to allow you to do is be prepared for every single gunfight. As I'm coming around that corner, notice how my crosshair is the first thing peeking around the corner. I don't even need to be looking around the corner myself because I have a good idea there's probably going to be enemies in that area. So as I come around this corner, my crosshairs are the first thing looking in that direction. I'm already looking at my opponents before I can even see them, because what I'm doing is predicting them to be there. It's not a case of knowing that they're there, which is why you probably see a lot of streamers and you think they've got wall hacks. It's not a case of them having walls. They're just prepared for actually the opponents to be in those areas. Behind this bin, good chance there's going to be an enemy round there. So there we go. There's one round the top. I know there's someone probably behind this. There we go. There's one round the truck. You just need to be prepared for where these opponents are going to be. There's a good chance there's a couple. Okay, so there is one behind me. But I know there's probably opponents around this corner, so as I'm going to come around the corner, I'm going to be prepared for this. My crosshairs are always the first thing around the corner. I'm looking at my opponents essentially through the walls, even if they're not there. Because if they're not there, it doesn't matter. If they are there, you're going to put yourself in a much better position to win those gunfights. So now that you've sort of applied everything, it is just coming into games and putting as many bots in as you possibly can, or as many bots as you feel comfortable against to start off with, and just getting used to being snappy between your bots, just getting used to being snappy between them, throwing that bit of movement in to try and take them out of the game, getting prepared for where enemies could be, and overall just start improving your game against bots. And I know it's a little bit tedious playing against bots all the time, because, you know, they're not real players, they're not to the skill level of real players. But if you find that you're starting to come into games, it's becoming a little bit easy. You know, you're sort of actually very comfortable playing against 12 bots all the time. You can snap between your opponents. You're prepared for the different gunfights that are going on. Then what you're going to want to do is start increasing the difficulty of the bots. Because once you've mastered Recruit, go up a difficulty, see how you get on against those, and just carry on trying and practicing until you feel like you are at a very good level. You understand how movement works. You understand where your aim should be centered and all of these sort of things. And I guarantee you your aim will definitely start improving. And then once you've done all that, guys, it is time to then start jumping into online games, whether that's multiplayer or Warzone. Go ahead, jump into the games. If you're playing Warzone and you really want to improve, I highly recommend trying out solo duos. And I also recommend playing on Rebirth Island or a Resurgence game mode. The reason for this is if you do die, you do still get the opportunity to come back. Just make sure you don't die too quickly so you can keep respawning. And this is really going to help you start understanding how to aim. It's really going to teach you about your game sense, the way to play the game, the best way to get around the map, the fastest way to be able to take your opponents out, and overall just really improve your game overall. But I really hope these tips have helped some of you guys out today. If they have, please be sure to smash a thumbs up on the video, as it helps me out way more than you can ever imagine. Let me know if you've got any more questions in the comments below, or any other sort of similar videos you want me to make. Leave it in the comments and I'll do my best to make some tip videos on those. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, notifications turn on, please make sure you're going to do that, as then you won't miss any more videos that I do upload on the channel. So make sure you guys do go ahead and subscribe and notifications turn on. But I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next one in a bit. Peace.